Imagine a series with acting greats such as John Cleese of the classic comedy troupe Monty Python, Christopher Lloyd of the iconic Back to the Future, Tim Curry of cult classics such as The Rocky Horror Picture Show and Home Alone, Elijah Wood of Lord of the Rings, and Babe Newirth of Broadway fame. You'd think this would make for one of the greatest classic shows you've ever seen, and indeed, it did, already, in the form of Over the Garden Wall. In 2014, Cartoon Network and Patrick McHale created a quaint and cozy little cartoon, 10 episodes long and each one not lasting for more than 15 minutes apiece. And yet, a deeper look into this whimsical world and you find themes of wistfulness, poetry, purgatory, limbo, mental health, illusion, and being stuck in the forest, the place between places, the midway point between normality and life, and oddness and death. AKA the unknown. Every autumn, it has become a personal tradition of mine to rewatch this great series, and I sincerely recommend you all do it too, because there always seems to be something new to be discovered with rewatching Over the Garden Wall, just like all great media. And because it is autumn and these themes are very prevalent at this time of year, let's take a closer look at this world and delve into this plane of existence. But to do this, you must be ready to sit back and contemplate the oddness of all things. The absurdity, the beauty, the comedy, the frogs, the autumn, and the creepy. So come with me, get a nice hot drink, a blanket, and if possible a warm fireplace away from the beast, and delve deeper with me into the forest. My name is Kyle, and this is Exploring the Unknown through Over the Garden Wall. Into the unknown we go, golden memories swirling in the air. The woodsman prays for our demise. Watching and waiting, he gives a cold stare. We start our journey with two brothers walking through a spooky wood. Wirt and Greg. Wirt is a poet, a musician, a hopeless romantic, and someone who seems to get in his own head quite often, and likes to describe his feelings through worded prose. Greg is quite the opposite. He has a frog, who goes by the name, well, he goes by many names. Kitty, Dr. Cucumber, Greg Jr., Skipper, Ronald, Jason Funderburger, and, of course, George Washington. Greg poops a lot of candy, assumably because it's Halloween, and they're in kind of funny costumes. But this leads them to being followed by a monstrous, rabid, and massive dog. Greg, in Over the Garden Wall, is kind of a welcome ray of sunlight in the gloominess of the unknown, and indeed, in the life of Wirt in general. He's a carefree and kind of idiotic soul who really hates school and loves potatoes and molasses. Luckily, Greg's carefree nature and candy pooping has allowed them to meet our first curiosity, the woodsman. The woodsman carries around a lantern, which he says is his lot in life. It is his purpose, but seemingly one that he does not want to bear. He uses the oil of the Edelwood trees, which are fictional trees which grow around in the forest, to keep it alight. After getting annoyed by the kids who destroyed his wood-squeezing mill, he lets them go on to find another town and wreak havoc elsewhere. Now, who is the woodsman? He's not the same as the woodsman in Little Red Riding Hood in any way at all. In the Brothers Grimm story, the woodsman is a hero. Our woodsman is not exactly a hero. Although he seems to be a good-hearted person trying to help Wirt and Greg, he's still just kinda creepy and ominous and gives no answers that aren't super vague or prosaic. When Wirt and Greg defeat the dog they believe to be the beast, the woodsman clarifies that the beast is far, far more dangerous. He stalks, the woodsman says, like the night. He sings like the four winds. He is the death of hope. He steals children, and he'll ruin. He stops there and begins crying, indicating that there may be something deeper, something personal this beast has done to the poor woodsman. It is their burden to bear, says the woodsman, before our quirky brothers leave, to be able to leave these woods and beware its inhabitants. We will talk more about the woodsman later. For now, I'd like to tackle the central question of this video. Because how does any of this even relate to the concept of the unknown? Not just in the sense of the show, but the concept of a space between spaces. There are many theories about Over the Garden Wall. A main prevailing theory is that the unknown is no fantasy world at all. It is not this imaginative plane conceptualized by Wirt or Greg to battle their inner feelings. It is a real place with real people and real stories. It is a kind of purgatory or limbo. And this makes sense when you think about the characters that are within it. One of my favorite characters in the show, Quincy Endicott, played by John Cleese, is a very lost man. He has lost his sense of purpose, his sense of family, as we can see by him accepting that Wirt and Greg are his nephews, quote-unquote, and even his mind. Endicott has a massive tea empire, and says that he sells tea so he can get more money, just to take his mind off his troubles and his, quote, deep, soul-crushing loneliness. In a contradictory way, he keeps on expanding his mansion, which has become so large that he loses himself within it, both physically and mentally, spiraling him deeper into madness and loneliness. But there is something far more fascinating about Uncle Endicott than his listlessness, one which many viewers may not have noticed on first viewing. Many have assumed that Uncle Endicott is actually dead. After all, we see his tombstone in episode 9 when Wirt goes to the graveyard of his town. We also get clues when Uncle Endicott says, "Heave ho, into the abyss, never to return." So what does this mean? Does Endicott die after the brothers' visit? Or rather, is he already dead? To give credence to this theory, he never eats any food, and there are no servants in his massive labyrinthine mansion. He's not exactly a young man, and a very large mansion definitely requires some maintenance. So how does he do anything? He's disgusted with his own health tea as well, and most importantly, he raises peacocks. Now, you might be asking, what the hell do peacocks have to do with anything? Maybe he just thinks they're really pretty. Which is fair and possible, but in Egyptian culture, peacocks are symbols of immortality and resurrection, of life after death. They believed that peacock's flesh did not decay even after death, indicating an immortal quality to their being. Perhaps Uncle Endicott is more lost than we ever imagined. He is a lost soul, whose business in life was never fulfilled. This business being finding his own fulfillment and love. This all makes more sense when we think about Endicott's character. He's definitely not from the modern era and is probably from the Georgian or Jacobean era. Same thing with Marguerite, his long-lost love. She's clearly a French lady, likely from the 18th to 19th century, just by her style and architecture alone. These people are from a different age, like many in the unknown. But their common thread is this: they are all lost, purposeless. The schoolteacher with her no-good two-timing boyfriend Jimmy B, the people of the tavern and the cultish people of Pottsfield. They are hopeless, listless, and searching for meaning or a fulfillment to their lives, and so therefore, to get back to the topic at hand, are now residing in the unknown. Before Mr. Endicott's fate could be determined, it is very likely that he had already died, prematurely, to what his true purpose in life was. Look at his grave in episode 9. We find that it says nothing of family, fatherhood, or any heirs or quotes. Now, wouldn't a man of such financial stature have something more? Maybe a private crypt, a mausoleum, a legacy of any sort. Before his fate was determined, he was gone, and so therefore is now in the unknown, searching frightfully for his purpose, his love. This theory also explains why people can die in the unknown, because technically it is not a complete afterlife, it is simply a midway point between reality and non-existence. We also see a similar theme with the woodsman and the beast. The beast seems to be a similar character to Loki in the Norse fables. He's a trickster, manipulating the inhabitants of the unknown to take deals that are impossible to turn down, which really just benefits him, the beast. He manages to trick Adelaide and Greg, and he would have kept the woodsman there until he died were it not for Wirt figuring out his ruse. Once the beast is dead, the woodsman can now carry on to his afterlife, where his daughter is waiting for him. Now, another cool theory with Over the Garden Wall is that each episode actually represents a different circle of hell in Dante's Inferno, which, again, sounds kind of insane, but hear me out, there's a lot of theories about this, I'm not the only one who thinks this. This theory actually has a lot of viability, since when someone pointed out the striking similarities to the symbolism of Dante's Inferno to the creator of Over the Garden Wall, Patrick McHale, he never denied it. And if you look at each episode, yeah, there are some really obvious parallels. Now, there's been multiple analyses of this particular theory done, so I'll just give you a brief rundown in this video. First of all, Wirt and Dante have some undeniable parallelisms. Both are poets and are kind of physically inept, preferring more intellectual and artistic pursuits to pursuits of the flesh. They are also both in love with a girl who exists in the physical plane of existence, where they are unfortunately both not. And by the way, the name of Dante's lover in the Inferno is actually Beatrice. Now, I don't know if that means anything to the show, but it's true. Of course, they both wear red, and most damningly, they both go on a spiritual, self-reflective journey through the afterlife with a companion, Greg, who represents Virgil in this situation. Dante describes his journey through hell as a pilgrimage. As we know from the Tavern episode, Wirt is also described as the Pilgrim, possibly representing his journey with Greg as a vagabond through this plane of existence. The beast obviously represents Lucifer, who is described as a multi-faced, multi-horned deceiver and trickster, which is exactly what the beast is and looks like. In the Inferno, the devil can travel through the 9 circles through his shadow, where he can only observe and watch from afar, almost tauntingly, which seems to be exactly the same method the beast uses throughout the entire show. It is also described that Lucifer consumes the souls of sinners and children to fuel himself, just as the beast does by turning wayward travelers into edelwood trees and having someone harvest them to feed his own soul. Each episode in Over the Garden Wall is meant to represent some form of the 9 circles. So, for example, Pottsfield represents limbo, Miss Langtry and Jimmy B represent lust. The Tavern people and their consumption represents gluttony. Uncle Endicott represents greed and its consequences. The next episode, where Wirt lashes out at Beatrice and makes her run away, represents anger. Heresy is represented in Lorna and Auntie Whispers. That one is a bit of a stretch to me. I don't understand the parallelism there too much, but we'll allow it for now. Greg and the Old North Wind represents violence, and episode 9 and Wirt hiding who he is, hiding his true self, represents fraud. And of course, last but not least, the beast tricking the woodsman and almost tricking Greg represents the last circle of hell, which is treachery. In episode 1, Wirt and Greg are sent north by the woodsman. In both Sanskrit and Greek, north has an interesting and almost contradictory connotation, sometimes meaning hell or below/lower down, and sometimes just left, since north is to the left when facing the sun. This could indicate the first step in the brothers' journey through the 9 circles. Another striking coincidence is that in episode 2, allegedly Limbo according to this theory, you meet the people of Pottsfield, whose leader is named Enoch. The Book of Enoch in the Bible refers to the time when literal giants walked the earth, and Enoch certainly fits that bill. Enoch was tasked with watching the Watchers, assumably the people of Pottsfield, Watchers being angels sent down from heaven to watch over the earth. However, much of these angels later succumbed to lust and greed, and broke heavenly laws, therefore being stripped of their bodies and wandering the lands without a physical vessel to feel either pain or pleasure. Just pure skeletal dancing. This is all biblically true, by the way, I'm really not making this up. Enoch is revealed at the end to be a black cat, which of course is an animal said to be able to travel through hell and also has 9 lives. The coincidences are certainly piling up. In Dante's Inferno as well, people who committed suicide are condemned to exist within a forest, where they would grow into trees. Meanwhile, in our little show, the Edelwood trees are made up of lost souls who lose their way, traversing through the unknown. In the same way that people who have decided for death may have lost their way along the path of life. I enjoy this parallel particularly because it typifies everything wonderful about this show. Patrick McHale utilizes the allegory of lost souls in Dante's Inferno and interprets it into an empowering tale about not losing hope and overcoming doubts and the unknown. Indeed, in a lot of ways, the unknown is very similar to life in general. The unknown is pretty much a microcosm of existence. It involves people from all times and ages, from different lands and stories, who are all somehow, in some way, lost. The unknown is just as much a purgatory as it is a magical allegory for life. So I think we can all agree that the parallels of each episode are simply striking. In fact, given all this information that I've just told to you, one could pretty much interpret Over the Garden Wall as just a modern kind of retelling of the story of Dante's Inferno, and honestly, I wouldn't blame anyone for doing so. Now, whether or not this theory is completely or partially true, I think it's at least accepted that it's true in some way. The most powerful themes in this story are the very same as to those in Dante's Inferno, which is this: the theme of being lost and trying to find, or rather recapture, oneself. Wirt and Greg, just like Virgil and Dante, meet people who did not live righteously. They either were very wealthy and lost themselves in their wealth, lost themselves in their love or their lust, or lost themselves in their search for something greater than themselves, forgetting what was before them all along, i.e. the woodsman's paranoia about his daughter and being tricked by the beast, etc., etc. The concept of stories and storytelling is essential in Over the Garden Wall. Every person has a story, or as the show says, a lovely lie. And we are watchers of these stories, listeners of lost souls, trying to find their way back from the unknown. And I would argue that such meaning, such profundity, in a children's show no less, is extremely, extremely hard to come by. Which is why I, and I'm sure many others, consider Over the Garden Wall to simply be a masterpiece. And by watching it, we can maybe traverse the unknown with some level of confidence and hope, never letting ourselves get entrenched by the temptations of doubt and anxiety. We all need a Greg for our Wirt, a Jimmy B to our Miss Langtry. For we are all on this journey through the unknown, and through these lovely lies, we can take some truths with us. And that, I think, is almost as good as potatoes and molasses. Well, I hope you all enjoyed. Leave a like, a comment, and do subscribe. This video took a long while to make because I have just been super busy with my regular life, but I hope it was worth it. I'm not sure if I may have missed the boat with the seasons or something, but hopefully autumn is still autumn when I release it, and if it's not, then, well, just enjoy it whenever time you can, because let's be honest, Over the Garden Wall is timeless. Whatever season, you can watch it, it's just perfect for the autumn. In any case, I will see you all in the next one. Bye bye.